So thank you. Just do a quick round of introductions. Jim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, it's good to be here. Jim Bowie. I'm the CISO for Tampa General Hospital.
Angie Klein, and I am the Identity and Access Management Manager and Leader at Federated Insurance.
Hello, I'm Greg Percival with Crescent Energy, and I am the head of cybersecurity and GRC for them. Just a little kind of a twist. Actually, we've been about 25 years in oil and gas IT, and in the last 18 months, we made the switch to the cybersecurity side of the house. So it's been an interesting transition. So hope to share some stories with you.
And thanks for joining today. Obviously, Jim and Angie, you were kind enough to come back, and I think that's something that I really love about the HIP conference is people keep returning, keep sharing that knowledge. And Greg, first time, and really appreciate you joining us on stage today at very short notice. I grabbed Greg on Tuesday, I think, and strong-armed him into to coming to sit with us up here today.
It may have been before or after a drink or two, too.
So it was interesting listening to Chris's talk. It's always really interesting, but what's really struck me again is this: what you're doing by sharing your knowledge is acting. You're helping the community get stronger, and so we should all thank you for doing that. The other thing that struck me is a quote from Confucius, actually. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it more complicated. And listening to all of the talks that happened at HIP this week, I was listening to Klaus's talk on Entra Backup and what have you. The world just keeps getting more and more complex with the whole digital ecosystem, the forever expanding. And we always seem to be in this block and tackling sort of model. So today we're going to talk about, what you guys are doing around defending sort of hybrid identities in this ever-increasing complex world. So the first question I was going to ask you is, what strategies are you taking as companies to protect hybrid identities across the on-prem and the cloud environment? So let's start with you, Angie, if that's okay.
Sure. So as I was thinking about this question, I kind of was thinking, I'm like, I don't know that our strategy has changed a whole lot from when we went to on-prem to hybrid. We still do least privilege. We still do just-in-time provisioning or just-in-time access. Still have all the monitoring and alerting. There may be more monitoring and alerting that happens. But a lot of the same protections that we all did when we were all on-prem still pertain to today's hybrid world.
Jim, any thoughts on that?
No, she's on point. If you apply the same principles, same frameworks to the cloud as you do, the tech's a little different as you do to on-prem, same best principles, you'll end up in the same spot. Also, most cloud breaches are just a login. So really, if you're protecting the user, whether it's a user like an AI or a user like a service account or a key, that's the best thing you can do, honestly. And it's the most likely attack vector.
So it's interesting because part of the narrative for this session was about the increase in speed and sophistication of the changes, and we had a pre-session call, and Jim and Angie both disagreed with me on this notion that things are getting more sophisticated, and I love that. I think the panels where we disagree often bring out the best conversations. So tell me why I'm wrong.
I mean, you're not wrong. The attackers are getting more sophisticated, right? You had brought up like deepfakes and AIs. They're just finding better ways to fool us as humans. But the attack is still the same in that they're just trying to convince people to give up passwords, or they're just trying to find an exploit. If anything, the more technically competent we get and the better secure we get, the easier they find easier routes to just go after the human target. Right. So that like all the talks we've seen, like the great keynote or opening keynote 2 days ago, humans are the major weakness of this whole thing. So if you just go after enough humans, you'll eventually find one that wants to help out the bad guy, not on purpose necessarily. And that's what you have to learn how to protect.
Brilliant. Greg, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that too, and to me, all the technologies that we have out there, the frictionless passwords and things like that, and the strategies that we use for this, we all are taking it out of the visibility of the user And I think what we're not doing is actually educating the user additionally, right? And so we spend all this time putting all this great technology in place, and we continue to say the weakest link is the human, but yet we put very little effort towards that. And so that's been something that's been rattling through my head, especially since it's cybersecurity month, right? And so it's like, how do I leverage that to kind of get that in front of my users so that they are thinking about password security? They're worried about what to do when things go wrong, instead of trying to hide everything from them a little bit. So we're trying to do some education as one of our real key initiatives this year to kind of help bring down the threat factor in our environment.
So we did something very similar to that. We revamped our entire onboarding process for employees. I got with HR and they gave us 30 minutes. And the whole presentation is not about here's our TGA, here's our Tampa General policies, here's what you should and shouldn't do. It's literally a seminar on intro to cybersecurity from a how to make yourself safe at home perspective. And what we found is the safer we make them at home, the safer they'll be at work. And they learn to recognize these threats and why it's important. Don't store your passwords in your browsers, use a password manager. Like it's like they're just making them better. And it's almost the concept of every, not the military, I'm not trying to steal any value, but every Marine's a rifleman. Like everybody out there is in cybersecurity. So if you just make them better, you bring the floor up, you'll make the organization stronger. So it's a very good point.
It's very similar. We're doing a event during Cybersecurity Month for family protection and cybersecurity, and that's probably got the most attendance that's signed up for it in our organization so far.
I thought the talk from Mary was fascinating, and it was all around behavioural change. We talk about cybersecurity awareness campaigns and what have you, but actually it's all really about behavioural change. And I think that's part of the cultural hack there is to your point, I think, Jim, if you give people things that they can use in their personal life, they can take home, you get more of an emotional connection to doing the right thing. So I think, if you, what are you doing, Angie, in terms of?
Yeah, we try to do something very similar, especially during the Cybersecurity Awareness Month this month. A lot of it I try to tie into this security awareness is the other part of my job that I'm responsible for. And so we really try to tie both the personal and business together. So like, here's what you can do at work, but oh, by the way, this will also help you at home. Or, hey, you can take this home as well. Putting little micro trainings out there on various topics. Once a week, we try to do them throughout the course of the year too. And then also as attacks happen in the industry or things happen over the course of the year, we'll put additional awareness articles out. So one in particular this year, Scattered Spider was attacking the insurance industry. Well, that hit home. Luckily, we did not get hit at all, but being able to really pivot quickly and put those awareness articles out, go talk to our help desk, go talk to our customer support people, help them understand what could be coming, what's happening. And we had a lot of people reporting more and more things to us that we had never seen before. And so that it made us pivot, go, okay, is this because they're more aware or is this because it's happening more? So it really, our employee base is really kind of wanting that type of information and wanting that type of education. And so we're just trying to figure out how do we put it out there, one, so it helps them at work, but also helps them in their personal lives and is, relevant to their current position in their job.
Very good. So let's just change tack a little bit. So if you came to the talk with Jen yesterday, you could say Jen was real optimist, and you had this cynical old person who has a bit more of a pessimistic view on life. And one of the things that strikes me is that we've all, as the digital ecosystem continues to grow, AI, next phase of the next technology cycle, we will fundamentally not put the right foundational controls in place and then have to retrofit, because that's what we always do in technology. But what are you doing about all of the technical debt that you're accumulating that's creating this more complex world around identities specifically? And what are you going to do about that? So, Greg, let's start with you on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, so we're actually under an initiative in the company as a whole is simplify the grow. And that's a theme from the exec team all the way down to every department. And so because of just the way that we've grown as an organization, we never took the network or any of the assets and made it into what was optimal for our organization. And now we're actually taking this time to do that because we're realizing that that debt that we have is actually going to prevent us from getting to our goals of being a larger organization in 5 years, right? And so what's important is a very, very powerful message: simplify the grow. And it's a theme that gets talked throughout the entire organization. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. We're looking at our environment and seeing how what we inherited it through mergers and acquisitions, and how we can now assimilate that into a more, homogeneous environment so that it is a smaller attack vector for us and things like that as well. So I think for us, I'm lucky in the sense that we have executive leadership all the way down trying to do is simplify the grow, and we've been able to bolt on to that and leverage that both in the IT as in the cybersecurity world. So,
Very good. Jim?
So this is going to sound like poor me, coming from healthcare, but that's not what it is. I have technology in my network that I cannot get rid of. It's 30 to 40 years old. I'm sure energy has the same problem in some of their industrial control systems. For instance, I have an MRI machine with configure on it. I can't get rid of it. I'd have to remove a wall. We had the vendor come in and replace the hard drive with a new image. The image itself has configure on it, so that doesn't help us. The MRI is certified to that image, and the company doesn't make a new MRI without us spending $40 million for whatever piece of equipment that is and ripping out a wall of a hospital. So I'm gonna
Poor you.
the theory I have on that is we're just gonna have to deal with it. So you pivot at that point, right? You can throw a bunch of technology at it. You can try microsegmentation, macrosegmentation, and let me know if anyone's actually successfully completely done that, having building on a legacy network. Or you can prepare for the worst. And that's where you shift to a not if, but when, which we say all the time. But the easiest thing you can do to mitigate that kind of a problem is understand that it's just going to be a problem, and train on how to prevent and detect and respond to the attack. Prevent's the wrong word. So if you're not doing constant, that's one thing as cybersecurity we do very poorly, and that's why Marty's my hero. Is we'd spend all this money on technical debt and trying to alleviate vulnerabilities and exploits, which is a noble cause and something you should absolutely do. Don't get out there and say CISO said don't do vulnerability management. But you don't train your people on what to do when the crap hits the fan,
Yep.
right? And we don't drill enough on that. Coming from law enforcement and EMS, how you work in the crisis is what habits you developed on the way to it. And if you haven't trained enough, you don't have habits, and your people are going to panic. So you should be constantly drilling them at some point and having live exercises and whatever way you choose to test your incident response plans. So that's how we deal with it.
Great. Angie?
Yeah, it's a very similar. I mean, even in the insurance industry, we are a very conservative technology company, and we like our old infrastructure and we like things and don't like to move fast. So taking it piece by piece, taking small pieces, figuring out what you can do. One thing we did a couple of years ago, because our CIO told us we couldn't change our password policy because our marketers couldn't type the 15-character password 3 times a day, is we had to go single sign-on for all of our applications, which is something I had wanted to do for a while, and I was really okay that the CIO pushed it. So what I ended up doing was I threw 5 of our smartest engineers and developers into a room, and I said, figure out how we can do this. And it took them about 2.5 months with one of our most complicated apps that we had, and they figured out how to build single sign-on on top of all of our legacy applications. I don't know all the technical details, so please don't ask me. I know we use Azure App Registrations. That's all the tech I know about it. But by doing that, we were then able to get all of our business-facing applications a single sign-on, which then let our CIO tell us that we could change our password policy when we were all sick of our pen testers putting that as a finding on our pen test year after year after year. And it got us to a point where people actually liked what we did from a security standpoint, which does not happen very often. But that was just taking like that small piece of technical debt and just working through it. And then since then, we're still working through piece by piece by piece. Just you're not going to eat an elephant in one bite. You're going to take one small bite at a time, and that's kind of how we handle the tech debt situation, or really any old infrastructure situation, is just taking it piece by piece, planning it out, and figuring out what can you do. It might not be getting rid of all of it, but can you segment it off a little bit, or could you change one thing? Could you take one application maybe, and maybe they have to have a separate user ID for that application because you can't do something else with it. Just figuring out exactly what you can do and then working through that.
Okay, thank you. Interestingly, I did some work with the NHS in the UK, and I've got friends who are in the NHS, and one of their biggest challenges is they have endless credentials for different systems. So it's interesting to see, people genuinely move into single sign-on. I love that T-shirt that's going around that says something like, "My password's been hacked. I've had to change my dog's name," which I think is just that's what they're doing in healthcare. And one of my friends tells me that it's winter 2025, summer 2025. So enforcing each of the systems to do password resets. Again, from a behavioral change perspective, doesn't make you more secure. It actually less secure. So just picking up on your point, Jim, about you have to assume breach. So how are you rebalancing investment now for years from a cybersecurity perspective? We are throwing money at trying to prevent everything. How are you changing and rebalancing that investment now around actually the true definition of resilience, which is your ability to withstand the majority of adverse effects, but recover quickly from? So what are you doing there?
So I went in front of my board, and I'm sure all of us had this problem, that healthcare is panicking about funding. And they're like, we're cutting everything. We're cutting travel. We're cutting training. And I said, I would turn off 50 things before you cut the training for my staff. And here's why. If you want to make a race car faster, you train the race car driver. That's it. It's not the brakes. It's not the engine. All those are cool. The biggest indicator of an outcome for patient success of a surgery is the surgeon or the staff. So it's about training their pilots. Same thing. Pilot training, accident rate is a direct correlation. You pick any industry. And we at cybersecurity, and this is a soapbox I'm going to get on, are so bad at that, recognizing that we spend 25 million, 50 million, whatever your budget is, 99.9% of that on tech to solve a problem, when your absolute best efficiency value for dollar is sending your people to training, or getting training for them, or buying services to help train them, whether it's some sort of, range simulation product or whatever. The amount of value you will get in an incident by training your people is millions of dollars, usually, depending on all of our industries, millions of dollars an hour, if not minute. So if you can spend and it's only like $500,000 was my training budget, right? And I have the biggest training budget of anyone else in IT because I'm the only one who fights for it. Everyone else just cuts it right away. If you don't fight for that, and that $500,000 can reduce like $50 million of risk, and in healthcare actually save lives. Like that minute response time, whatever X dollars to minutes of mean time to resolution, it's the biggest thing you can do.
Very good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That, and one thing that we have really done in the last year or so is taking the tools, like technologies that we did put in place, and working to optimize them so that they work for us in our environment and they work for us how we need them to work, rather than just buying a tool and putting it in and hope for the best. Sometimes you have to customize things to make it work for you. And then also, like you said, training your people on those tools. Don't go out and buy 15 more tools because they promise that they're going to do something and solve a problem. Figure out what your root problem is. And a lot of times it's people, but sometimes it is your technology just isn't working for you. So optimizing those technologies, making sure you're using them to the fullest, and again, training your staff, training your people. And one of my taglines, I think, Jim, you said it earlier, security is everybody's job. and really pushing that out to our entire employee base that, yes, we can see some things, but we can't see everything. So you guys have to help us.
Can I add something to that real quick? Just to add to your point, if you take the number of pieces of technology you have in your cybersecurity stack and you divide it by the number of engineers and analysts you have, and that number is higher than 2, you have shelfware. Right? There's been studies over and over about that, maybe 3, depending on how good the engineer is and how awake they are that day. So if your ratio is more than 2 to 3 per engineer, you're not as secure, and anything over that is just wasted tech and wasted money. Spend that on something else like training or more people.
Greg, what's your view? Because you've just, you're fairly recent into your environment. There's a lot of M&A going on.
So we like everyone else has spent a lot of money on tech to defend ourselves where we needed to. Where I think we're shifting towards now is the people on the process side, right? And we're focusing from every level in the organization. And one of the things that we're still starting our journey, so we haven't done our business impact assessments, and we haven't done a full-fledged DR plan. Those are all things that are on our radar to get done. But what we have done is we did a tabletop exercise, and it was one of the first things I wanted to get done, and it was actually with the executive team. And I did it with the executive team to get their awareness to it, right? And I think it opened up the eyes to kind of really kind of get the rest of the organization kind of on board that we need to get to a plan, right? And each plan needs to kind of work together, because if you all are working from different plans, it's very unlikely a scenario that comes up that's disruptive to your business is only going to fall in one department. So you're going to have multiple plans running if you don't connect your plans together. And so I think that's one of the things that we're really focused on right now is the people on the process side of it, because I think like y'all, we spend money on the technology, we've gone through and done the optimization. We can see measurable improvement because of that, but we're still seeing the weakness on the user side of it. And so I think that's why we're shifting kind of to the process and to the people side more than on the technology over the next couple of years.
I absolutely believe that fundamentally you need to start these exercises with the exec leadership. At the end of the day, it's not the CISO that's accountable for the risk. It's the CEO, and they're the people that run the business. And it's, to I think Chris's point, our mission isn't to do cybersecurity. Our mission is to support the business to deliver the outcomes.
Into that, one of the things that the tagline that we're using is we're trying to create muscle memory, so that in the event of an incident, you use your muscle memory to respond, so you're not panicking, and you know what needs to be done, you know who's doing what, and when it needs to be done by, and who you need to report to, right? And so, by going through these exercises and creating that muscle memory, when an event actually does happen, no one's panicking, right? It's just a thing that happens in the day, and they all quickly get together and we remediate what's happening and move forward. Because the reality is the conversations is not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, right? And you want to be able to do things and have things in place that when it happens, you can detect it early, because that matters a lot, and you can contain it early, right? So you got to make sure you do the things to make that sound it's easier said than done. You got to do all the foundational work to get there, right? But if you got just, I've heard a lot of people talking about that they're in the same boat that I am, with like the lack of plans and things like that. All you tell you is how we started our journey is I just took a step forward and start moving, and then make the next step, and then started building the plan out from there. So,
very good. And actually, I think interestingly enough, that whole process. So the vast majority of organizations in the world now are digital organizations. There's very few that now could say they're analog. Maybe my local plumber or what have you, who writes out a ticket when he does the job and what have you. But genuinely, most organizations are digital. And actually going through that exercising is a great way also of educating the executive teams. And interestingly enough, I did one at BP back in 2017, and it happened to be the same scenario that NotPetya had hit on Maersk and Merck, etc. And we did it 6 weeks before. I'd like to think it was a bit of strategic brilliance on my behalf, but it wasn't. It was pure luck. But what was really fascinating about that was the way you managed to educate the business. So the business actually didn't didn't really know what were the most important business outcomes when the entire organization is flattened. So, BP had a lot of crises, as you well know, and we're very used to managing crises in isolation, but not when every single part of your business is down. But we were then able to use that to actually educate them that at the heart of the lifeblood of the digital ecosystem that is running your business is the identity platform. And when I went into the crisis room and I went in to do sit reps and get priority and then walked out to let them argue over what was the most important thing for the business, when I went in and said it'll take me 2 days to recover the identity system, they looked at me and said, that can't be true. And it's so what are you doing? How are you using that as a vehicle to actually elevate the need from a resilience perspective, to get that recovery portion done?
Yeah, so we did a very similar exercise a couple years ago. We brought everyone from like our business continuity team, disaster recovery team, IT, like we had this whole plan figured out, and it was a 3-day exercise. It was really fun to see the looks on some of their faces when we came in with an injection that said, oh, by the way, our entire data center just shut down. You can't do anything. And they went, what? It was also very educational for us, though, too, to understand that like our CIO and execs, what they thought was the highest priority to get back up.
Yeah.
Which then totally pivoted what we thought we were going to do first. They told us email and phone systems were the highest priority, get those things back up quickly so our customers could communicate with us. And I was like, oh, that's not what I thought. And at the start of that exercise, we had, I believe, 140 critical applications identified as critical that had to get up in like 2 days. And we looked at them all and we went, not possible. At the time, we did not have an AD backup recovery solution. And so as we're sitting as an IT or like an infrastructure staff saying, okay, if all of our data center is down, we have to get new hardware, we have to get this, we have to get this, we have to this. How much time is this going to take? And we spitballed 2 weeks. Our CIO did not like that. He told us he was going to take a magnet into our data center and just wipe all of our servers. So that really prompted us to put some preventions in place, put some recovery efforts in place. And also then it forced our business areas to go back and reprioritize their applications and it also educated them as well on, well, yep, I understand your app needs to be up in 2 days. That 2-day time frame does not start until we have all of this other infrastructure up and going, because your app can't run until all this other stuff is up. And also that time doesn't start until our IR firm gives us the okay to go start recovering, which could be 2 weeks from now. And so it was a really good educational opportunity, and we have taken that and run with it and did another exercise this past year, not nearly as long or as complex, but and it went way better because they understood some of that. And so I really encourage anybody who has not done a big exercise like that, and includes everybody that could potentially be incorporated in a recovery DR type situation, to do it. Come up with a scenario, come up with injections, have fun with it, but absolutely do it to educate your executives and business areas and everyone involved.
It's interesting, when we did that exercise, we would have had 250 incident teams running across the globe. Everything from incident responders to the businesses on the ground, to the business support teams, which were making sure that the right business decisions were being made in the relevant jurisdictions and the relevant federated business areas, up to the executive team trying to run the overall business. And in that scenario, people were arguing about, the most important thing is the safety of our ships on the sea, or getting oil out the ground, or actually it was cash. It was the ability to manage cash flow. That was the most important thing. So it was never one of those front end business. But then when you went down and explained to them, here's all of the supporting infrastructure, therefore you need to bring back in order to manage cash flow. That's when we got, significant investment in the identity platform. So it doesn't start from we need money for identity. It starts from this is the important business outcome I'm trying to achieve, and the identity system is actually the beating heart of that digital ecosystem.
We're expecting that to be a driver for us through this process. And when we go through the business impact assessment, is to really drive how much the business can withstand that. And so we're anticipating that we're going to get some investments to kind of bring down those what's the return to recovery of time and things like that. So I think going through and bringing the business into it and making the business a part of the decision, part of the building out of the plan, brings that sense of ownership to it, but also then brings the funds and the resources needed to make a full-fledged plan for the entire organization.
Very good. So Jim, complexity in the landscape, Entra, do you use Entra or Okta or?
We have all kinds of stuff. The gamut.
Poor you. But now bringing back the identity platform, and I was listening to Klaus's talk on recovering, backing up and recovering Entra. It's so complex. Back to this, the quote, we just make life more complex all the time. What are you doing around sort of the ability to recover with integrity, both your hybrid, your hybrid identity platforms?
So the first of all, I'm in a unique situation that I think I want to make a career out of being a post-incident CISO, because it makes things much easier when you're coming in to clean everything up, because now the whole organization is looking at you. So
is that a job you can apply for?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I was brought in. They was like, we need help. I was like, sure. So the first thing I say is, how are you backing up AD? And how are you backing up, Azure at the time? And they're like, oh, we take VMware snapshots. So I was like, oh boy, that's not going to do it. So the first thing I did, I was like, I need X number of dollars, go out and get a product, not a commercial. Obviously I'm here. And I drilled the team over and over again. I was like, we're recovering both sides of this. We're recovering AD and we're recovering Intra over and over and over again. You're going to do this every 2 weeks in a test environment until we get this right. And we found so many little pieces of connections that we didn't know about, and we had to figure out how to deal with. We can now fully recover in 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Wow, that is impressive.
But it takes 2.5 years of constant drilling every week or two of doing it over and over and over and over again until you get it right.
Fair play. That is super impressive.
Yeah. So I would recommend you do that. And the tech investment, relatively small, right? I mean, ask your rep what their cost is. But the training investment is other than their hours, standing up a test environment is relatively easy out there in Azure, because you don't need the full. You just need to restore ADC or a part of this. You don't need to deploy your entire infrastructure over again to test identity. Relatively small. So now you can budget your people's time. You can block those calendars off and make sure that time is a sanctuary that doesn't get brought down except for an obviously massive incident. And you make them drill on this over and over again. And once they get that down, you can lessen the time train to a month, and you add something else in. Now that we've recovered AD and Intra, let's recover our tier 0, right? So that's what we do. I forgot to train.
Yeah, well done. That's super impressive. Greg, can you beat 10 minutes?
Maybe. No.
Maybe we should do that at the next tip, is have a race to recover.
Actually, is Claire in here? She could tell me if I beat 10 minutes or not. 17 minutes. There we go. Same journey that you went down, same realization with the organization and how do you get your backups back if you don't have AD and things like that. The same level of denial at first that came along with it. It was a lot of persevering with them, and we do very similar where we go through with Claire once a quarter on doing a restore process, right? And so that, to me, I'll plug it a little bit. I mean, Cympress is great, right? The products are great, but the service is just as good. And so that, to me, is super important. And so that's why I enjoy, so I'm here sitting on stage promoting it, because it's such a great product and great team behind it. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Angie?
Very similar. Our purchase of the tooling came out of that IR plan when we attempted to recover AD on our own, and it went horribly wrong. actually just didn't work. And so coming out, because we thought, we're like, yeah, we can do this. We've got good engineers. We can do this. We're going to try this on our own. It didn't work. And so I immediately called my rep and I was like, yeah, I need to do this. We need a POC. We need to try this. We need to start looking at this. And I believe the last recovery time we were at 18 minutes. I don't think we're quite at 10. But honestly, it depends on your environment. It's going to depend on your environment. It's going to depend on your latency. It's going to depend on a lot of different things. And I will say we don't test it every week. We don't test it every quarter, but we do test it at least a couple times a year, just to make sure. Again, it's an insurance policy that I hope we never have to use, but it's there in case we do. But also plugging the whole testing, like you can't just pretend and you have backups and hope that the backups will recover well. You have to actually test that and make sure that it works.
I'm going to add another piece to that. Whatever you do purchase, you become the hero because you can replay mistakes that IT makes on themselves, because you're going to bring yourself down more than an attacker is. Like, we all know that, right? And we've saved more money in downtimes by being able to recover from an oopsie. And that just funds that part of the program, hands down. I don't have any, even my CIO is like, we're not getting rid of this ever. I was like, okay. So just think about that when you're trying to find funding for it.
Yeah, when I got to announce to all of our IS leadership, I said, we got a successful test. We got it recovered in 18 minutes. And they went, and how long would it have taken before? I said, oh, probably a couple weeks. And they gave me like a standing ovation, and I didn't even really do anything. But they understood that if we don't have AD up, none of their stuff is working. And so they were very appreciative of that, and our executives are as well.
You were listening to Marty up on stage as well, weren't you? It's like, well, if you can't log in, nothing works. But is there any questions from the audience at all? We got the mics up there if anybody's got.
I have a question from, I have interviewed a lot of people who use Purple Knight, which is our free assessment tool. They're usually people who are hands-on AD every day. And one of the comments that I hear is that there's a real disconnect still, I think, between the security organization and the IT organization, and trying to convince, and it sounds like you guys are on board, but trying to convince the CTO or the CIO that Active Directory deserves special tools and processes and people. It seems to, especially now that a lot of organizations are facing budget issues, when consolidation conversation comes around, there's a lot of push to not have a specific AD recovery or security tool and instead consolidate with like a data protection tool. So what would you advise those people who are trying to defend AD and getting a lot of pressure to consolidate?
So the most rapid change I made in Active Directory and protecting Active Directory in my organization, other than what I just told you about, because there was still resilience, a problem about AD as a whole, right? About the health, like running Purple Knight, seeing all the problems. I paid for a class, and I brought all of infrastructure, the CTO, the CIO. I paid for a live class. It was a couple hours. In this case, I used Heath Adams. He's a great guy. He does these on-demand classes all the time. It was just attacking Active Directory, and it was a live lab, and I just showed them, and they went through and did it themselves, how easy it is to attack Active Directory, like in 5 seconds, domain admin. Like, they went through all the LLMNRs, SMB1s, all these attacks that are just little script kiddie toolkits that you can just deploy right away. And at the end of that, I had things I had been fighting for years to get fixed, where the RFCs were put in that weekend and changed the next week. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So if you're a vendor trying to sell the product, pay for them to take that class. Like, it was like $5,000 for 10 people, and use any class, but like show people. Don't just tell them, show them.
Great question. We got another question. I'm conscious we've only got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, and I've got a two-parter here, so I'll do my best. First, how big is your organization? I mean, my best time with 25 domains is 3 hours to recover. Doing it in 10 to 18 minutes, I mean, holy crap, what are you running? And the second part of that is, do you have other teams in your IT infrastructure working on the same type of thing? Because we ran into this, catch-22 before. If Active Directory is down, I need to recover Active Directory to a secure, isolated environment, which means I need VMs, but there's no Active Directory, so the VM team can't log in to create VMs. How are you guys incorporating that huge umbrella of IT in your recoveries?
You were making.
Yeah, I can go. So my organization's one domain at about 3,000 people. So we're a fairly small organization. As far as like having the VMs, we have them stood up already, ready to go. We have them segmented. VMs already stood up exactly like our current domain controllers so that we're ready to hit the button, you hit the button and you go. We don't have to, and we have a, non-Active Directory login into the management server so we can get at it and do all of those break glass type situations. And we test that. We test with those DCs that are sitting there. I call them DCs in waiting. Test to make sure that we can get in, we can recover without Active Directory. And yes, we have other IT orgs. Actually, our infrastructure and backup teams just went through a big project to actually increase, or I should say decrease, the amount of time it takes to recover all of the servers and the VMs and everything like that, putting whole new base infrastructure in to make everything faster. And so that helped our whole backup and recovery story to our executives that we are in a better spot now than we were even a couple years ago.
30,000 users, 100,000 endpoints, thousands and thousands of servers is our size. And just to back up her point, what she did with that, I don't know, we call it a mock or a stage system, is super cheap. Like that's pennies on the dollar for an infrastructure to set up a break the glass environment to just restore to. And that's part of the secret to restoring in 10, 20 minutes is have that up and ready to go. That's not attached to AD right now. It's just servers sitting there in Azure or wherever you want to be, ready to go.
Greg, anything from you?
Very similar kind of scenario. So we're about 1,300 employees, and if it's a small IT organization, we probably only got about 5 or 6 controllers.
To follow up, we have the isolated network and the VMs are already stood up. So if I just take the time I kick off ADFR, it's 50 minutes. But 3 hours for the whole thing. We're coming in cold. Someone called me at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. Now we have to get people together. We have to blah, 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 blah. Infrastructure, DNS, networking, firewalls, all of that stuff, that's not in the isolated structure. And that's where we're running into roadblocks, or I'm running into roadblocks with our environment. So any suggestions? Who do I talk to higher up to say, hey, go? And I know we're short on time, so.
10 seconds for each of you on that question.
Take over the network security team. It's your problem now. You can do what you want with it.
Angie, Greg, anything to add? So this session was called the Hybrid Identity Games, and I think we've just found a new game, actually. It's like, who can recover Active Directory the fastest? And we could perhaps, we could get you all to log in remotely to your session, to your companies, and just have a game up on stage. I just really, back to Chris's point, about, you all are acting, coming up here and sharing your knowledge and expertise, and I'm sure you're happy for people to grab you after the event to get some more knowledge out of you. I just really want to thank you for, your continued support at HIP, and look forward to inviting you, Greg, for many, many more HIPs. It's like the Hotel California. You can never leave HIP once you've joined it. So thanks very much, and it's been a pleasure as always, and have a great rest of the day.